Hello, everyone. It has been so long since I have done a live stream, and we took a few months off, but I am happy to be back. And you guys know that normally I have Lizzie with me. She is actually out on a cruise right now, and I always joke that we let her out of her cage. So Lizzie is out on a cruise, and so you just have me today, and we are just doing a regular Ask Me Anything. So I have been asking you guys on my Facebook, my Instagram, what questions you have. And I have a list of questions that have come from the audience. So I'm just going to run through those. And then also, you guys, this is interactive. I can see whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're watching from, I am able to see your questions. So throw those in the comments and I will be happy to answer. So, first and foremost, let me see. We have a question saying, how much money do I really need to buy my first rental? And you guys know I used to do my 90-day challenge where we would actually walk you through every single step like that. We're not doing the challenge anymore, but as part of that, this was a question that I would get all the time. And our answer here in the Midwest is about $25,000 in capital. Okay. So we can talk about what that capital is, where it can come from, and what happens if you're outside of the Midwest. So when I say capital, the most obvious is like cash. Okay. Cash money. Savings, whatever, but it doesn't have to be cash. It could also be your 401k. And I wouldn't recommend you take money out of your 401k, but many custodians let you borrow against it. So you could have some income there. You could use a HELOC where you may have equity on your personal home. You can use a securities-backed line of credit, a SBLOC. This is how I do all my private lending. We have money in brokerage accounts, and then we have line of credit against that. So there are tons of different creative places that people actually can find money, and it doesn't have to necessarily be cash. And even if you don't have your own cash yourself, but you have some financial partners, that is an option as well. And so maybe you do the work, you find the deals, but your friends, family, a private money lender is willing to fund that project for you. So this is all stuff that I do in my own business. It is, we call it OPM, other people's money. And it is a fantastic strategy to start or scale a portfolio. Now, that 25K, how did I get to that number? It's not necessarily a hard, fast number. Okay. This is just in my experience from the hundreds of deals that we bought over the years and I've wholesaled and I've been a part of, hundreds of transactions where what it comes down to is about 10 to 12% of the combined purchase price and rehab costs. So if you're buying something for $100,000, the property, and it needs $50,000 in work, that's $150K that you're borrowing. So about 10 to 12% of that. So $15,000 to $18,000. So that's why we say the 25K, because you may be in a little bit more expensive market. And that will get you one deal at a time. So we like to say every $25,000 is equal to one deal at a time. So if you have 50K or 100K, that's going to get you, up to 4 projects at a time. If you have 200K, that's 8 projects at a time. And that's without using private money lending. That's just your own cash. So what you would do is you would use your money as a down payment leveraged with hard money. A hard money lender is going to cover 90% of the purchase, 100% of the rehab. And that's kind of where you get that 10 to 12% down. Cool. So I forget who asked that one, but I hope that was helpful. About 25K is what you really need to get started here in the Midwest. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your own like cash. It can come from like cool, different creative places. Yeah. Y'all let me know. Let me know in the comments. I see quite a few folks on. So let me know what questions you have. Cool. Okay. Next, ahead of time, we got, should I buy where I live or should I invest out of state? That is an age-old question. We get that one all the time. Should I buy where I live or should I invest out of state? There is this big fear that investing out of state has to be riskier because you can't be there to see something yourself. Now, if you're starting off in real estate, I understand that's a fear. But if you have a couple deals under your belt, you're probably already not going to a lot of your properties. In my case, we have about 70 rentals. I don't really go to my properties very often. I do every once in a while if something's like truly needed. But for the most part, I have people, software, and systems. People, software, systems. I talk about these things all the time. They are the trifecta of how I really believe that remote investing is possible. There's actually a running joke in our community that I'm a remote investor, even though my portfolio is in my own backyard, because people, software, systems, you don't have to do a lot of this stuff yourself. You can automate it. You can, hire someone. So the biggest kind of security that a lot of our community who is investing remote, the thing that makes them feel best about doing it is they have a really good boots on the ground. So BOTG, boots on the ground. That is someone who is local to the market where you're investing. They have a car, they have some free time, and they have some baseline real estate knowledge. They definitely don't have to be a real estate expert. But the real key here is that they are not someone who has any other interest in the project. So it is not your real estate agent. It is not your contractor. It is not your appraiser. These are great people to have on your team and you want their opinions, but your boots on the ground is separate than that. Your boots on the ground is your eyes and your ears. They are acting in no one's interest except your own. Now, if you're investing remote, there is some cost tied to this, right? They have to drive to the project. They have to meet the person. They need to FaceTime you. They need to do all these things. So you will have some cost tied to it. Think about, I measure everything in risk reward. Okay. So the reward of not having a boots on the ground is you save $50. Cool. You save $50. Woohoo. That's a great reward. The risk is that your real estate agent inadvertently or hopefully not on purpose omitted something from the walkthrough. Hopefully it was just an honest mistake, but I've been in this business long enough. I've seen a lot of stuff. So, you just want someone who's there, who's just keeping an eyes and ears. So that is the key to remote investing. If you are on a coast, right? East Coast, West Coast, New York, a lot of Florida investors are moving their money to the Midwest. If you are in a market where it just genuinely does not make sense to buy rental properties and you want to buy rentals, you don't have much of a choice. You can either move where you're investing, uproot your family, pack up the U-Haul, move across the state or country, or you can get comfortable with people, software, and systems. These are all things that we help our students inside of our community. We have a lot of these resources, especially if you're investing here in Central Ohio. We can connect you with the boots on the ground. We can, connect you with someone who can be your eyes and ears and tell you what systems to use, tell you all that stuff. So it is totally possible. About 50% of our community actually is a remote investor themselves. And it works. So I'm not saying as a remote investor that you never should go to your market. You should come visit. You should come visit. We have one student down in Florida, John, who has never been to Ohio, but he owns like 30 rentals here. So it's not a requirement, but I do recommend that you at least go visit your market and kind of drive around, spend a weekend there. If you can go every 6 months, do it. So if you're living in California and you have family in Kansas City, that would be my very first thought on where I should invest. If you have friends and family you want to go visit and write off as a business expense, that is a great, great way to help narrow down your market. So that was should I buy or invest out of state? And the answer is you absolutely can. It is not nearly as hard as people think. Then I have, how do I find deals that are not on Zillow? Okay. So Zillow, as you guys know, is basically like industry standard where you can see deals that are listed on the MLS, but anyone has access. So you don't have to have a real estate agent to look on Zillow. You can set up searches, you can set up feeds. It's fine. I would say it doesn't replace getting a real estate agent. So even if you are looking at on market, having an MLS feed from your agent is still going to be better than just like Zillow alerts or, whatever it is. And they're going to be able to like send you some more detailed stuff as well. So on market is a great deal source. It really is. I buy just as much on market as I do off. But if you're only using Zillow, you are missing out on literally hundreds, if not thousands of off-market deals. Truly, hundreds, thousands of deals that never hit the market. Now, how does that happen? If you are not familiar with the term wholesaler, get familiar. This is where most of your off-market deals are going to come from. So a wholesaler is basically acting as a middleman or middlewoman in between the seller and you as the buyer. And so the wholesaler's job is to go out and get properties under contract that are distressed, they're under market value, and then their goal is to sell that contract to an end buyer for a fee. So we break this down in 3 different roles. There's A, B, and C. A is the seller, B is the wholesaler, and C is you, the end buyer. Okay. So A and B enter into a contract called a purchase agreement. B, who's the wholesaler, goes to market this contract to an end buyer. You've probably seen someone say, hey, I have a contract for assignment. That's what they're looking. They're looking to assign the contract. So then the B to C contract is called the assignment agreement. And what it does is it takes B out of the equation and it makes it so A and C are in contract together. Okay. So that is how you can get off-market deals without going to do the legwork yourself. If we want to put some numbers on that, say, the A to B contract's $100,000. They're marketing it, B's marketing it at $120,000. You do some negotiation, you get that down to $110,000. The wholesaler made $10,000 for doing all the legwork to go out and find this deal, put it under contract, make sure it's a good deal, and bring it to you on a silver platter. Are all wholesalers perfect? No, of course not. It is, frankly, I will say it's an entry-level strategy. It is how I got started. I will say it's not entry-level because it's easy, because it's not easy at all. You guys, my community knows wholesaling is actually one of the hardest jobs that you can get into, because you have to understand how marketing works. You have to understand how to vet a seller, how to negotiate with a seller, how to underwrite a good deal. So you need to know, repair costs. You need to know how to run comps. You need to know every single aspect of real estate. But I say that it's entry level because you don't need any money to do it. Not any money. Marketing costs money. If you're wholesaling at volume and you're marketing at volume, at my peak, I was spending about $15,000 a month in marketing. So I won't say it doesn't cost any money, but there's also free channels. You can do handwritten letters. You can drive for dollars. You can do all this stuff. So it is how a lot of people start in real estate investing. And there's a variety of wholesalers in different kinds of relationships. There are the big dogs that are doing 50 deals a month, seriously, down to, 5 or 10 deals a year. And it's relationship based. So you have to know that person, right? You have to know the wholesaler and you have to do a good job for them so that they keep bringing you deals. And when I say do a good job, you have to perform as the buyer to keep bringing deals. And so, off market, whole different ball game. You can also bypass the wholesaler and you can go do that marketing yourself. So this is, if you own any rentals already, you've probably gotten a text. Hey, do you want to sell your house? You've probably gotten some information in the mail, postcard, whatever. If you want to do that yourself, more power to you. There's definitely some costs associated. You have to get good at negotiations. You have to have a CRM. You have to do all this stuff. But it is totally possible. It is how I started. And there is so many off-market deals. Troy said he's going to be reaching out for a personal meeting. Troy, ask me your questions here. What do you got, man? Troy's a student of ours, and yeah, would love to connect. But yeah, ask away. I'm happy to answer. So you guys, there's folks on for sure. Let me know what questions you have. I do have a couple more, but if I don't get any more, we'll make this short and sweet. So let me know your questions in the comments, and I can see them all here. Okay. Oh, how did I get started? Ooh, that's a good one, because that actually flows right into kind of what I was just talking about, is how I got started. It was wholesaling. Let me take one step further back. How I accidentally got started is back in 2012, I bought a condo down in Austin, and I get creative. I tend to get creative about a lot of things. Got creative, and I started renting out the rooms of the condo, and it worked out well. Did that for a couple years. I ended up buying another house, long-term lease in the condo. A year later, did it again. So I had roommates where I was living, and then I had 2 long-term rentals, and I just thought that I was a little genius, and I thought I had it all figured out. Turns out that I had a lot to learn, but it worked out. It really worked out for what it was. It afforded me the option to quit my job, to go travel the world for a year. I spent 12 months living in a country every month. So I got to see the entire world. I met my wife. I met the job that brought me to Columbus. It was a fantastic life experience. I would recommend for anyone. But even with the 3 rentals, I was like, okay, this is cool. Real estate's cool, but I still didn't take it seriously. So when I moved here to Columbus, I did get a job working for someone else. Boo, won't do that again. Boo. And I made it about 18 months. But that whole time I was going to real estate networking, real estate meetups. I was paying for some education. And that's when 2018 was when I intentionally, on purpose, got into real estate full time. And I was wholesaling. I was doing everything myself. I have pictures of me and Laura writing cards, handwritten cards at our kitchen table. It was a wild adventure for sure. And it worked out. I was saving money. I was buying some rentals, and it really worked out. And then January 2021 is when I got super clear about the method that I use now. And that's when I really started to scale my portfolio. So before the couple years, I was just worried about like cash. And then I started moving more into like wealth creation, and that's where we are now. So from January 2021 through today, you can say today, really, well, for 3 years, I was buying very, very heavy. We scaled from 11 to 70 doors in that time frame. The last, say, 18 months or so, I've been more transitioning, like selling some losers and buying some more winners, and kind of stabilizing the portfolio a bit. So I'm still buying, but not nearly as much as I was those couple years. Definitely still buying. Yeah. And so that was how I got started. And it has been an absolute wild ride, a wild journey. I knew that I would work for myself, but I never knew that it would be in this capacity or this rewarding, or the ability to really create the life of my dreams. Like, honestly, we're going to Cabo for 11 days next week, and I get to work with people I love, and I get to fix things and provide housing. And it's just freaking badass, y'all. It is so cool. If you can make this work for yourself, I would love to help you in that process if it's something that you're seriously considering. But, real estate as a career is incredible. So, ask how I got started. I had many starts, and it was kind of accidental, then intentional, and then wealth building. And it really worked out. Yeah. Okay. So I have one more that folks ask. And again, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. The last question that I have is, What happens if a resident does not pay their rent? Okay. I know that this is a big fear. I've been asked this one before. It happens. It absolutely happens. People sometimes cannot pay. I'm sure you, at some point in your life, had a bill that you struggled with, right? Hopefully it wasn't your housing because that's a pretty big one, but you had a bill that you struggle with. So let me take a step back and actually go over how you can kind of prevent it from the beginning. So the key is really, really good applicant screening. It's something that took me a long time to learn. It is part science, part art, right? An art and a science. You need to trust your gut instinct, but you also need to rely on facts and figures and numbers. So we have an applicant scorecard. It is designed to kind of quantify credit score and time at job and percent of late payments. And we look at, all sorts of different things, pets and how many people in the home and all this, because there's obviously code. You have to stick within code. And so we look at all of those factors and we come up with the score, and there's, brackets. And if their score is within this bracket, then they're qualified. If it's within this next bracket, they're maybe qualified with a higher deposit. And then below is, I'm sorry, you're not a good fit. And we'll tell people exactly why they're not a good fit. You're actually legally required to. And so good screening, not just the scorecard, but you got to take it a step further. What does the past 2 jobs say about this resident? What does the past 2 housing providers say about this resident or this applicant? And all those factors into consideration. And even when you are on top of your game, you're doing every single thing that you're supposed to, you move in the best resident that you can ever imagine, there's still going to be a moment where that person cannot pay rent. Ask me how I know. Okay. So the key is that you are a business, but you're also a human being. And so you have to follow your process. You have to follow your systems that you have in place. You set the expectations. Well, my community, when we have someone move in, we set the exact expectations. What's going to happen when rent is late, if or when rent is late, and you have to stick to it. So you're late, for us, it's due on the 1st, late on the 5th. On the 6th, 3-day notices go out. You have 3 days to pay or quit, which means move out. So either you pay, quit. We have a couple other options. We can offer a payment plan that is signed in writing. We can offer rental assistance, but you have to prove that you have applied to, it used to be 3, but assistance is so spotty now that we're doing 5 spots, and you have basically 2 weeks to get us an approval. If you don't get that, we proceed with that eviction. Now, do I want to? No, of course not. Eviction is the worst case scenario. I want to work with people as many different ways as we can ahead of time. You can do all that while you are still moving through the eviction process. Do not stop the process because someone told you, oh, so-and-so, hey, Mrs. Landlord, I'm going to pay on the 25th. Do not wait till the 25th, because what's going to happen, now you have your 3-day notice. You're a month behind. You're a month behind because there's a chance they don't pay. Now, if you put the payment plan in place and still run the eviction process behind the scenes, and they're aware of it, right? It's like, hey, thank you so much for this plan. I'm still filing. If you can pay by X date, like we've agreed to, then you will release or dismiss. We'll dismiss the judgment. Okay. So we dismiss a lot of judgments, and they pay for that. But it works, right? So there are so many different steps you can do when someone doesn't pay rent. Worst case scenario is that they just cannot get it together. You can cash for keys them. You can offer them some money to move out because it's going to cost you less than an eviction. You can, give them their deposit back without penalty. You can do a whole bunch of stuff that's creative, and you're probably going to come out better in the long run, even though Cash for keys, I always get people with an ego. They're like, oh, well, you didn't pay me. Why would I pay you? Take the ego aside and let's really think of what's best for you and what's best for the business. Do you want to go through an eviction, or do you want this person to move on and get your property back? Okay. Okay, we have a question. How did you know when it was the right time to go full-time to real estate after those 18 months? Oh my gosh. I love this story. It's such a good question. I work very, very, very hard. I have a good work ethic. I also know when to relax, but I have a good work ethic, and every job I've ever had, I go above and beyond. I'm an A player. I care. Okay. So for this job, whose name I won't mention, but if you watch any of my other videos I have in the past, for this job, I was working incredibly hard for someone else. And I was up for an annual review. The review came up. I asked, I won't say numbers, but I was paid severely under for the qualifications that I had for that role. I was a certified project manager. I was running multi-million-dollar projects. I was being paid a fraction of what I should have been. And I was up for review. I asked for a very modest raise that was still far under what I should have been paid. And I was told no. So when you're working that hard for someone else and it's not being reciprocated financially, it's not a super hard decision. I talk to a lot of folks who are like, hey, I'm making $200K a year in tech. I'm like, okay, well, that's a different story. I did not have the golden handcuffs of a high paying job. It was, believe it or not, quite easy for me to walk away from this job. Within 1 year, within 18 months of being full-time on my own, I had a single deal come through that was my entire annual salary of that job that I was working my ass off for someone else for very little in return. And so a single deal paid my whole salary. It hit me like that was not lost on me. It was not lost on me. I was in tears, truly, that I, in a span of 18 months, was able to, 12 to 18, was able to figure this out to that level. And so it was pretty easy for me to walk away. And also remember, I had 3 rentals down in Austin before I moved to Columbus. 3 rentals afforded me the option to go travel the world for an entire year. So I knew that rentals were proven. Now, 3 rentals in today's market that I didn't house hack and I didn't have owner financing, you're not going to be able to do that. Okay. So don't think you can go buy 3 rentals and quit your job. Please, please, please. But I was replacing my active income from a W-2 with active income of direct to seller marketing and selling those contracts. I was selling that. I was B in the ABC. I was the wholesaler. So I was stepping out of the deal in exchange for a fee. Sometimes that fee was $2,000 because I messed up the numbers and I couldn't find a buyer. Sometimes that deal was $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, Then I started getting into flips, and that's active income as well. And then I started getting into buying rentals more longer term. So I knew when I was denied a very well-deserved raise, I literally was crying on my kitchen floor. I remember the scene. I can literally see it from above. I was crying on my kitchen floor, and my wife came in and she was like, just quit. Like, go full-time real estate. This whole time, I'm telling you, I had been going to RIAs, meetups. I paid for education. I spent money on my education. And so I felt a lot more confident doing it. So yeah, great question. Great question. You guys, if that's all you got, this was a great one. Thank you. And thanks for those that submitted ahead of time. I'll hop on every so often and do these as people kind of start asking me more questions. So thank you for your time, for sure. Yeah, amazing story. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in working with me, I do have, I would be remiss to tell you that we have a mastermind program. It's called Rentals Made Easy. I can put the link in the comments to if you guys want to get on a call with our team, and would love to kind of talk you through how you can do this exact same thing for yourself, how you can buy rentals, how you can do it surrounded by other people with the same mindset and an expert kind of guiding you, making sure that you're not doing all the crazy mistakes that I made when I was getting started. So I'm going to drop that link here in the chat. It should be on YouTube. It should be on Facebook. And we will hopefully see you on a call. If not, I'll be back, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe a month or so for another Ask Me Anything. So I will see you guys later. Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. See ya.